the 2018 Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series. Brought to you from the studios of Georgia Public Broadcasting. This is the race for the 10th Congressional District.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Brad Means, evening anchor with WJBF News Channel 6 in Augusta, Georgia, and you are watching the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series originating from the studios of Georgia Public Broadcasting in Atlanta. This is the debate among candidates for Congressional District 10. District 10, you should know, covers a large part of eastern Georgia, including Athens, Milledgeville, Monroe, Watkinsville, and Winder. Let's meet the candidates. They are in alphabetical order. Jody Hice, a Republican. He's represented Georgia's 10th district since 2015. And Tabitha Johnson Green, a Democrat, a registered nurse out of Washington County, Georgia. Welcome to both of you. Now let's meet our panelists. Raul Bali, a news anchor for Oconee Radio Group with stations in Eatonton, Greensboro, Madison, and Milledgeville. And Emily Jones. Emily is the host of Morning Edition on Georgia Public Broadcasting and reports on all things coastal Georgia for GPB's Savannah Bureau. All right, let's get started. For rules on today's debate, you can go to the Atlanta Press Club website, atlantapressclub.org. You'll find everything you need right there. To start the debate, each candidate will be asked one question. Emily Jones, you get the first question for Jody Hice.
Thanks, Congressman. Your opponent supports free tuition at public colleges and universities. What is your plan for ensuring access to higher education?
Well, there's no question the importance of education. We all recognize that. And there's also no question that the cost of education seems to continually go up. You know, this is not an issue, though, at this point that the federal government should be dealing with. I think this is something that more directly resides in with states, with the universities, and you know, trying to curb costs from that perspective. But it's not my belief that the federal government really needs to be involved in trying to address the cost of education at the higher level.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hice. Emily, good question by you. Raul Bali, you're next. Your question for Tabitha Johnson Green.
Thank you, Brad. Ms. Johnson Green, raising the minimum wage is a popular platform for many Democratic candidates. I'd like you to clarify your position on raising the minimum wage, and that's because some of your comments in previous forums about the minimum wage possibly having a negative impact on prices and on small businesses.
We do need to raise the minimum wage, but we need to raise it in slow increments. We need to raise it so that it will match the inflation level. Also, with minimum wage raise, I understand the needs of the everyday citizen. I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to choose between paying a light bill, buying groceries, or paying for overpriced prescription med. So I'm here to represent the needs of Georgia's 10th Congressional District and the needs of the everyday working class citizen.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson Green. And that concludes the first portion of the debate. Now, the candidates get to ask a question of their opponent. Each candidate has 30 seconds to ask a question, 60 seconds for the response, and then 30 seconds for a rebuttal. By random selection, Tabitha Johnson Green, you may ask the first question.
Okay. I strongly support protections for patients with pre-existing conditions, like those the Affordable Care Act, which you voted dozens of times to repeal. Chris Carr is now suing to overturn those protections, and the Department of Justice decided not to defend them, putting nearly 5 million Georgians with pre-existing conditions at risk of being priced out of insurance. Do you stand with the Trump administration, or do you stand with these 5 million Georgians?
Listen, the one thing we've learned about the Affordable Care Act is it certainly is not affordable. And the people in the 10th District are very much aware of this. I talked to a business owner just last week. Their insurance premiums have gone up 500% because of the Affordable Care Act. Listen, in Congress, we passed the American Health Care Act, which did address the issue of pre-existing conditions. I supported that. I do believe we need to watch out and protect those with pre-existing conditions while at the same time driving down the cost of skyrocketing insurance cost. And that certainly is what we have under the so-called Affordable Care Act. So, yes, I fully support protecting those with pre-existing conditions and those with high risk, but we have got to interject the free market principles and drive down the cost of health care, which I voted strongly to do.
All right, Mr. Hice, we'll stick with you. It is your turn.
Oh, rebuttal.
Oh, I apologize. Yes,
Okay.
yes. Your turn for a rebuttal, Ms. Johnson-Green. My
Yes.
bad.
A lawsuit filed by Republican Attorney General Chris Carr specifically seeks to undermine this protection and others. If Republicans intend to implement protections for patients with pre-existing conditions, why would you sue them to overturn that? And why would this administration fail to defend them? I'll ask again, do you stand with the administration or with these 5 million Georgians?
All right, there you go. And now we're going to begin with Mr. Heiss. You can ask a question of Tabitha Johnson-Green. You can also use part of your question time, if you so choose, to answer the question she posed to you, but I'll leave that in your court, Mr. Heiss.
No, I answered the question. I support taking care of those with pre-existing conditions, but at the same time, we've got to drive down the cost of health care. Tabitha, I know you, like me, have been traveling around the district a lot in the campaign, and I'm just curious, what is the #1 issue that you're hearing from people as you talk to them?
The #1 issue that I'm hearing from people is health care and the cost of health care and access to health care. As it stands now, many of our rural hospitals are closing at alarming rates, and many are struggling just to keep their doors open. So access to quality health care has been of vital importance.
Well, and I would just say that's probably the #1 thing that I hear as well, both from businesses and individuals that simply cannot afford health care. And that's why I voted to repeal Obamacare. Voted to get rid of the individual mandate, which is the culprit behind skyrocketing costs, and at the same time protect those with pre-existing conditions. That is what we have tried to do in Congress, and we'll continue to work to that end.
All right, thanks a lot, both of you all. Good answers there, and time now to wrap up our second round. If you are just joining us, by the way, this is the debate between candidates for Georgia's 10th Congressional District. We're going to now go back to our panel to ask questions of the candidate of his or her choice until we run out of time. Now, by the way, as the moderator, they've allowed me the privilege of asking a question if I so choose and then determining if a rebuttal is appropriate. So that's how it's going to look and sound as we roll on. Raul Bali, you get the first question in this round.
Thank you, Brad. This question is for Congressman Heiss. Congressman, you and I have talked in person, on the phone, multiple times about budgets and deficits and tax cuts. And so where my question is going is this. You have voted, obviously, for tax cuts and tax reform. You've also been voting against, the increases in the budget. At what point do you not vote to extend tax cuts or vote for new tax cuts when the Republican House of Representatives continues to increase spending? When do you draw that line?
Well, listen, I drew that line a long time ago, Raul, and I thank you for the question. It is disturbing. There seems to be an insatiable appetite in Washington to continually increase spending. We are now approaching $22 trillion of debt. This has become a national concern that must require immediate action. We simply cannot continue sustaining the kind of debt load that we carry. And I committed that I would not vote to raise the debt ceiling. I've been committed and faithful to that end. I'll continue to do that and to vote for everything we can to prevent bankrupting our country and future generations.
Thank you, Mr. Heiss. And Mr. Bali, I know you had a follow-up.
But at some point, do you tell Republican leadership, I can't vote for tax cuts, or I can't extend tax cuts if we're not going to make cuts in the budget?
Yeah, and we make that. But look what tax cuts have done. They have created a booming economy, which obviously generates more income for the federal government as well. So the revenue that's being taken in is extremely high, which gives us the potential of reducing the deficit. And so we've got to do that and not take that additional revenue and spend it. And so there's the balance that has to be done between tax cut and deficit.
Time now for a question of one or both of the candidates. For you, Emily Jones.
I have a question for Ms. Johnson-Green. You've said the way to deal with illegal immigration is to reform the legal immigration process. And I'm curious to know what the specifics, what specific reforms you'd like to see. What should that process look like?
We should reform the immigration process, and one way to do that is by streamlining the process for people to get green cards. Now, America is the land of opportunity and always has been the land of opportunity. And this country was founded by immigrants, and they're the backbone of our economy. So we need to make sure that we open our borders while protecting our borders to those seeking safe asylum and refuge by making the process to citizenship easier.
Mr. Heiss, let me give you a chance to chime in on immigration because it is one of, if not the biggest topics, at least these days, as you have that caravan of thousands of people marching toward our southern border. Your take on immigration?
Yeah, and listen, my phone's been going off the hook with this caravan approaching. And there is a right way and a wrong way to come to this country, and I totally am opposed to any amnesty, any shape, form, or fashion thereof. There's a right way to come into this country, and a wrong way to do so illegally is a wrong way to do so. At the same time, we do need to upgrade our current system. I've known people it's taken over 20 years to become a citizen. There's no reason for it to take that long. But we've got to defend our borders and protect those who are coming here illegally, and folks need to come the right way.
Raul Bali, your chance to ask a question.
Congressman Heiss, I want to follow up on that. As a member of the House Armed Services Committee, would it be okay to use the defense budget to fund or future fund the border wall between the United States and Mexico?
We've not done that now. We just came through the Defense Authorization Act. And that was not a consideration. That's not to say that it perhaps would not be at some point. Obviously, the primary purpose of our defense budget is to defend our country. And I could see where possibly that discussion on the border could come at some point in the future, but it's not so far.
Emily Jones, your turn to ask a question.
And this one for both candidates. Both of your health care plans are really quite different. Congressman Heiss, you're calling for sort of market-type solutions, like being able to buy insurance across state lines, things like that, whereas Ms. Johnson-Green, you've called for essentially Medicare for all. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to hear from each of you, and we'll start with Ms. Johnson-Green, I think. Why is your plan the answer for Georgians?
Universal health care for all is the answer for Georgians because it will ensure that every Georgian will be covered and receive the necessary care and treatment. Also, we all deserve access to quality health care. Now, through a system of collective bargaining, we can bring these things to pass so that everyone will be healthy. And in order to have a prosperous nation, we need to have a healthy nation.
Raul Bali, your turn to ask a question of a candidate. Oh, wait, we needed both, don't you?
Yes, we need both.
No, and I appreciate that, too, because if there's one thing I've noticed about each of our candidates so far is that you are not using your allotted time. So we're going to get a ton of information packed into our short time together, and I think that's exciting. Mr. Heiss, your thoughts?
Yeah, listen, I think the worst thing we could do when it comes to health care is universal system. That would actually cost us from George Mason University over $33 trillion over the next 10 years. We're already $22 trillion in debt. We simply can't afford it. If you want to have a picture of what government-run health care would be like, you need look no further than the VA. And we had someone, just in June, I believe it was this year, a veteran put himself on fire in front of the Capitol here in Atlanta in protest of the sorry coverage provided by the VA. Our government is not equipped to run a healthcare system. That is best left to the free market principles. No one knows better than free market solutions to drive down cost and provide the best health coverage. And that's where we need to be looking for solutions.
Ms. Johnson-Green, did you want to add to that?
Yes. We need to look to other countries like Switzerland that have a system of universal health care so that we can make sure that all Georgians are covered.
The next question goes to Raul Bali.
Ms. Johnson-Green, one issue that I cover on a regular basis in the 10th Congressional District is rural broadband. What can the federal government do, whether it's funding or otherwise, to make service faster or even make service just more dependable for people who just want to use the internet?
Now, we need to increase funding for rural broadband as it stands now. We have millions of people that don't have access to internet service or quality access to internet service. We have communities where you drive through and you can't even get cell phone service. So we need to invest more funding into rural broadband so that we have kids that have to do their homework, and sometimes that's online. And also we have small business owners where their main source for revenues are via the computer and the internet. So we need to make sure that we increase funding for rural broadband.
All right, that was for Ms. Johnson-Green only. Are you satisfied with the answers so far, Raul and Emily? Yeah, no, it's going great, I think. Your next question, Emily.
I'll ask this of Congressman Heiss, should people living in Georgia who are in the United States illegally be counted in the 2020 census? And should the census ask them about their legal status?
Well, yes, I think we need to ask. We need to know, and certainly no harm done in having them part of the census. The question comes, and the ultimate issue behind this is whether or not they should be allowed to vote at some point. And the answer to that is absolutely not. Under no circumstance should an individual who is in this country illegally ever be allowed to vote. The right to vote is reserved for the American people, American citizens, to choose their leaders. And for an illegal in this country, how dare them come into this country expecting to vote? That's something reserved for American citizens to determine their leadership. And I think ultimately when we come to the question you bring up, that's the issue behind the matter that needs to be addressed.
Let me offer a rebuttal on that in regards to voter suppression. Voter suppression is real, and the only way to combat voter suppression is to vote, and to vote in mass numbers, and we need to vote like our lives depend on it, because it really does.
Yeah, but what about the status of people who are here illegally? The question is, should they be counted when the census takers go door to door?
Well, once citizenship is established, then as far as voting goes, then yes, people should be allowed to vote.
Raul Bali, the next question is yours.
For both candidates, the owners of Plant Vogel's 2 new nuclear reactors recently had to rework their agreement after concerns were raised by the increasing cost. The budget now for it is over $27 billion. If necessary, would you advocate for the use of taxpayer dollars? And let me be clear, because we've been talking about this on the radio. We're not talking about nuclear credits. We're not talking about, loan guarantees. We're talking about taxpayer dollars if the project ends up in more trouble over the next 4 to 5 years. We can start with Congressman Heiss.
I don't believe I would support that. As you well know, our office has been heavily involved in trying to make sure that they receive the tax credits. I know that's not where your question is. So along those lines, we will continue working every way we can to fund this. This is a critically important issue, not only for Georgia, but for our entire nation, to have the nuclear energy plants. And I'm thrilled that they were able to meet a deal right now, and that those reactors are going to go forward and be completed. But I don't think at this point I would be willing to go down the line of raising taxes. I'm one that does not believe we should be raising taxes, period. We should be generating greater economic growth, and raising taxes is not the answer for that.
Ms. Johnson-Green, same question. Taxpayer dollars if Plant Vogel ends up into more trouble.
Clean air and clean water are vital to our health and our existence. We need to invest more in alternative energy sources, wind-powered and solar energies. That will create jobs, and also it will help to strengthen our economy. So with that being said, we need to make sure that we invest in other sources. So I don't believe in raising a tax for more Plant Vogel.
And thanks a lot, Ms. Johnson-Green. Mr. Heiss, I'll tell you what, the stakeholders and the power companies assured us that the Vogel expenses would stay out of taxpayer pockets. We'll see if that holds true going forward. Emily, the next question comes from you.
Ms. Johnson-Green, earlier I mentioned your call for free tuition at public colleges and universities, and I'm curious to know how you would pay for that.
Okay. One way to pay for that, we need to look at our discretionary spending budget. That would help us pay for provide tuition-free education.
Mr. Heiss, did you want to chime in there?
Yeah, listen, we've got a huge budget, as you well know, in this country. About 70% of it is on autopilot. It's it's mandatory spending. We only have about 30% that comes under discretionary, and under that is our military. We simply don't have the means within discretionary funding to pay for free education, and I would certainly not be in favor of that.
Ms. Johnson-Green, let me ask a question, starting with you. Mr. Heiss, you can answer after that. And the question has to do with the tax reforms that have been implemented during the first 2 years of the Trump administration. If you are elected, would you keep those tax cuts in place or try to overturn them?
For the average working American, the tax reforms have not helped us at all. what it is it amounts to about $21 for the working class citizen. And for people in that 1% who make over $200,000 a year, those tax cuts have benefited them by giving them $21,000. So I would repeat the last part of that.
Well, the question is just, if you're elected, would you make an effort to get rid of them, to get rid of the tax cuts that have been implemented just in the past few months?
Yes, when elected to Congress, I will make sure to work for things that would benefit us and the working class citizens of Georgia.
Well, let me add something, Mr. Heiss, to your response, or to the question, and then I'll get your response, which is, if you are reelected and Democrats take over the House, as some pollsters predict at this point, what would you do about those tax reforms if the effort is underway to get rid of them?
I'd do everything in my power to stop it from being overturned. Look what's happened to our economy. 2 years ago, we were being told that the new norm of economic growth was 2%, that would probably never reach 3%. Now, as of this morning, we're 4.1% GDP economic growth. Economists are now saying we could break through 5%. That's all because of the tax cuts. Businesses are making more money. Individuals are making more money. The standard deduction has doubled for a family from $12,000 to $24,000. The average American Georgia family, over $2,000 a year in savings and cuts. The economic boom has been astounding, and it's because of what's happened with the tax cuts bill, and I'll do everything in my power not only to keep it in place, but to take it even further.
All right, thanks so much, both of you all. Raul, the next question from you will go to both candidates, whether you want it to or not, and y'all are each going to have 30 seconds to respond, and I know you have some good ones lined up, Raul.
So this is a playoff, the same, it's slightly different questions for both of you. You'll see where I'm going with this. Both of your sides are going to be electing new leadership, whether it's a new speaker or a new minority leader. I'm not asking for names. I'm not asking if you're going to support, person A or person B, but starting with Congressman Heiss and then Ms. Johnson-Green. What is the kind of person that you're going to be looking to vote for? Are you going to be looking to vote someone more conservative, someone from the Freedom Caucus, Congressman Heiss, or are you going to look for someone who's going to try to work between both sides?
Yeah, look, I'm a proud member of the Freedom Caucus and a board member of that. But the purpose of the Freedom Caucus is to be a voice for millions of Americans who believe they've lost their voice in Washington. So who I'm looking for in leadership is someone who is going to do what we told the American people we would do. And we have a very clear Republican platform, for example, and I want someone who's going to hold that platform and say, this is what we believe, this is what our party believes, and as a leader, as a speaker, whatever it may be, this is what we're going to accomplish.
And Ms. Johnson-Green, whether you're voting for a speaker or voting for another House minority leader, are you looking for someone who is on the more liberal end, someone who reflects your values? Or are you looking for someone who's going to try to work between both sides?
In order to move our state, our world forward, we need an influx of new and fresh creative ideas. I am looking for new ideas from a new Congress. So I'm open to a representative who is a great forward-thinking leader.
Candidates, thank you so much for your responses. You all both did a great job, and we appreciate it so much. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for questions. Panelists, we appreciate you as well. So here we are. Each candidate now has 60 seconds for a closing statement. And Tabitha Johnson-Green, you get the first closing statement for us.
I'm a nurse, not a career politician. I'm running for Congress to protect my community, not corporate donors. I will gladly work across the aisles to help all Georgians, not just the wealthy. As your Congresswoman, I will listen to you, and I will make sure that Congress does the same. I'm running to protect our community from gun violence and poverty, to put country over party, and to make sure that all of my constituents get a voice in the laws that govern and shape our everyday lives and circumstances. I have 20 years of experience bringing health care to the members of this district, bringing health care that they need and deserve. And Heiss has 4 years of experience trying to take that away. On November the 6th, vote Tabitha Johnson-Green. I'm caring for our community, our state, our world. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson-Green. Jody Heiss, your turn for your closing statement.
Thank you so much, and thanks to the Atlanta Press Club for having us and for each of you being here, and Tabitha for joining as well. It's been an incredible honor to be able to represent the 10th District of Georgia in Washington, D.C. And upon running, I said I would stand for the values of this district and values of this state. And I'm proud to say that I've stood firmly for life, for our Constitution, for our Second Amendment, for religious liberties. I've also stood firmly behind the president to lower taxes, to lower health care costs, to defend our military, to fund our military so that we are once again the most powerful nation on the earth, capable of defending ourselves against any foe that we may face. This is a critical election that's coming up. We are moving in the right direction. I'd ask everyone to consider, are you better off today than you were 2 years ago? And with that, I would ask for your vote on November 6th, and thank you again for the honor of continuing to serve the 10th District.
Jody Heiss and Tabitha Johnson-Green, thank you both. And that concludes our debate. We would like to remind everybody that Election Day is coming up quickly, Tuesday, November 6th. In fact, early voting has already begun. And a special thanks to our candidates. You know, when we invite them here, they don't have to say yes. And when they do, it means a lot because we're all better informed. And so thanks so much again for your time today. And of course, our panel of journalists, Raul and Emily, a wonderful job as always by both of you. And thank you so much to the Atlanta Press Club and Georgia Public Broadcasting for arranging today's debate. For more information on the full schedule of general election debates, please visit atlantapressclub.org. We would appreciate it if you would do that. And do know that this debate will be archived right there, as well as on Georgia Public Broadcasting's website, gpb.org. Election Day is approaching. Early voting is underway, and counties across Georgia are reporting record numbers, so folks are taking part. I'm Brad Means. Thank you for joining us for the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series. Take care.